try that again, shall we? Because I just talked for probably 4 or 5 minutes before I noticed that I wasn't recording. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Hi. Squishies. This is Gravity Falls Season 2, Episode 4, Sock Opera. And let's start over. So, the big thing this episode is the return of Bill. I love the reveal when they're walking in the library and his shadow appears behind them. It's interesting to me that, so like, there still seems to be this consistent thing where he's not allowed to, or not capable of, operating in the world without being invited in. He can do things in the dreamscape apparently freely, but in the real world he can only do stuff if it's part of a bargain with someone else. So it's interesting then that he never actually fulfills his bargain with Dipper. He was supposed to give Dipper the password to the laptop in exchange for a puppet, and he took the puppet and never gave the password. Interesting. Also interesting that they just kind of smashed the laptop. I'm curious to see if it will stick around, like maybe they find a way to recover data from it. Like maybe the hard drive isn't damaged or isn't badly damaged. Or if that was just them getting rid of the laptop. I don't know. It's always a little strange to me when shows like dangle a potentially interesting new direction for the plot and then just a couple episodes later snatch it back. And it always makes you wonder, were they anticipating being able to do something that they then realized they couldn't? Or was it a case of, like, after a little while to think about it, they decided it wasn't such a good idea after all? Or was it planned that way from the start? The example that's jumping out at me at the moment, just because I am watching a reactor series of Avatar: The Last Airbender, they just got here, is late in the 3rd season of Avatar: The Last Airbender. They bring back 2 former recurring characters and introduce 2 new characters, and then at the beginning of the very next episode, shuffle all but one of them off stage, and they don't show up again until the finale, if at all. That's why. Why even introduce the thing in the first place if you're just going to pull it away again? Maybe it's setting up for something else. Maybe there is still going to be some way they can retrieve it, or maybe it's just a case of they decided getting it, whatever it was they had decided was in the laptop was too much too soon. So yank it away again. I know sometimes when, as writers develop a story, especially something that's serialized, they realize they've hit a corner, well, this character would do this, so, but that would ruin the story I have planned, so how do I prevent them from doing it? Like, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is on my mind because I've just been writing about it. Or the original Fullmetal Alchemist manga is actually where this originates from, is there's one character who is incredibly lethal and gets killed off quite early on because the author basically ran out of ways to keep the main characters alive as long as this character existed. Because this character had the ability to kill them, was increasingly motivated to kill them, and so how do you prevent that character from killing them? Kill them off. So yeah, it's a thing that happens sometimes. I'm just wondering if that's what it was, or if this is like a planned thing, or what. But yeah, that was one thing. Another is Bill's, going back to that thing of Bill can't act until he's invited. It's a very, like, traditional demon thing. Like, in, like, Christian-influenced pop culture, let's call it. It's quite common for a demon to be unable to possess you unless it is in some way invited in. Or, like, demons can't actually act in the real world or in the material world unless they're first summoned and then released. Otherwise, they can only, influence dreams, possibly talk to vulnerable people, that kind of thing. And I think we had established before that Bill can only act in the dreamscape except as part of a deal. I don't think it's that he can just, like, appear as a hallucination to people whenever he wants. I mean, that is sort of what he's doing for Dipper, but at the same time, Dipper's so sleep-deprived, I can completely see him, like, slipping in and out of a dream state that Bill can then exploit to communicate with him. Certainly it seems to be that, like, he fell asleep working on the laptop the first night that Bill came to him, and then, woke up in a panic when that dream was ended. So it's perfectly plausible that that's what happened. When the second time he talked to Bill, when Bill actually possessed him. Obviously, the main thrust of the episode is, kind of saying that Dipper has had many episodes where he's given something up, given up a lead or something like that for Mabel's sake, and arguing that she hasn't done as much for him, which I would have to go back, like, episode by episode to see if I agree that that's true, but at least Mabel seems to feel that, like, Dipper is the one who will sacrifice something he really cares about for his sibling. And she emulates him in that. It was a really great episode in terms of bringing the two of them closer, as being, willing to do things for one another, willing to put aside their own, like, personal pursuits for the sake of the other. Dipper allows himself to become so sleep deprived because he's trying to help Mabel with her show and work on passwords at the same time. And Mabel, ends up sacrificing her show to save Bill, or save Dipper from Bill. So yeah, it was a good episode in that respect. Kind of building that core relationship, because that really is the core of the show, is the relationship between Dipper and Mabel. That's the key relationship of the entire show. And it's why I like so much when they do episodes that are really about both of them. Because this is about, Dipper realizing that his, laser vision pursuit of the truth, the mystery of Gravity Falls, there are things that he shouldn't sacrifice for that. And it's interesting that he's been so often so willing to, sacrifice that for Mabel's sake, but wasn't willing to sacrifice it for his own well-being. In this episode, like, he had to know that Bill was up to something. He had to know that this was dangerous, but he was willing to do it. but he's not willing to go to lengths that hurt Mabel, at least not once he realizes that it's hurting Mabel. And, now that I'm thinking about it, most of the time, the thing that he's been willing to put Mabel, ahead of has been his pursuit of Wendy. Which the show is pretty solidly established that's over now. And good riddance to it. So now it's interesting that the show is positioning the relationship between the twins as more important than solving the mystery of Gravity Falls, because that mystery has been kind of the overarching plot of the show. And now they're saying, well, no, that may be the overarching plot of the show, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is Dipper and Mabel and their sibling relationship. And I like that, because it's cutting against that, paranoid reading thing. Speaking of, I love the poster at the very beginning of the episode that's read, ? And has, cartoon characters screaming at whatever it is they're seeing in the book. Because it's both very funny in terms of the show's, weird roots, fiction of the weird, tying back into Lovecraft and things man was not meant to know and that kind of idea. The idea of the book that contains knowledge that, comes in from outside and causes horror. It's also very in keeping with the town of Gravity Falls, which is not the most educated of towns, and has in the past occasionally shown a bit of hostility toward the excessively knowledgeable. So, yeah, I liked that. But as I was saying, focusing on the relationship between the siblings cuts against the paranoid reading emphasis that is so common in fandom. And it says that, maybe this story isn't best approached as a puzzle box. Maybe there are things, because a puzzle box is always going to be a better puzzle box than a story. So if you really want a puzzle box, why not go get a puzzle box? Maybe, while a story can have these kinds of elements, maybe the primary focus, and it's not to say you can't enjoy the puzzle box side of things, but maybe the primary focus should be on the things stories can do that other forms of entertainment can't. Treating stories not as puzzles or games or things to be solved, but as, presenting characters and relationships and ideas, as opposed to clues and puzzles. But then again, the show does continue to put cryptograms at the end of every episode, so, that could just be me reading into the show something that is not intended, because the show, deliberately putting in cryptograms, it's hard to cater more to paranoid reading. So, and from what I've read, apparently the cryptograms got more and more complex as the show went on, so, yeah. I think that's about it. So, good episode. Looking forward to the next one, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!